Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're exploring the absolutely incredible chronological epic of Prophet Musa, also known as Moses. We're going to break down exactly how a helpless infant who was placed in a little basket and sent floating down a river ultimately brought down the single most powerful empire in human history. It's an amazing story, so let's get into it.
I mean, just think about that for a second. How exactly does an exiled shepherd defeat a god king? Because on one side, you've got the Pharaoh of Egypt. We're talking about a ruthless tyrant with unmatched worldly power, massive armies, and an ego so massive he literally declared himself a god. And on the other side, an exiled shepherd. But as we'll see from the source material, Prophet Musa had something infinitely more powerful than any army, an absolute, unbreakable reliance on the unseen.
You see, Musa actually held a totally unique status among all of the prophets. He's known as Kalimullah, which means the one who spoke directly to Allah. And what's really fascinating here is the contrast in his character. The sources describe him as this towering, imposing figure with the physical strength of 10 men. But get this, he had a stutter. It's such a beautiful, powerful reminder that God purposefully uses imperfect people to accomplish the greatest tasks. Having a weakness doesn't disqualify you from greatness, not at all.
So the story kicks off in a truly terrifying environment. Pharaoh has this horrifying dream that a boy from the Bani Israel, the Israelites, is going to rise up and destroy his kingdom. And his response? He issues a brutal decree to kill all the newborn boys of the Israelites. It was in this nightmare reality that Musa's mother had to make an agonizing but incredibly faithful decision. To save her newborn baby, she placed him in a river basket and just let him drift away on the Nile.
But God made her a promise. He told her not to fear and that her baby would be returned to her. And the way this plays out is just mind-blowing. That basket floated straight into Pharaoh's palace. It was found by Pharaoh's wife, Asiya, who was a deeply righteous woman, and she just instantly fell in love with the child. Then, miraculously, the infant Musa refused to nurse from any of the women in the palace. His older sister, who had been secretly tracking the basket down the river, casually suggested a nursemaid from town. And guess who that was? Musa's own mother. So he was safely returned to his mother's arms, but raised right inside the palace of the very man who was trying to kill him.
Fast forward a bit to his adulthood, and we hit a massive turning point. Musa sees an Egyptian brutally beating a man from the Bani Israel. He steps in to defend the man, strikes the Egyptian, and because of his immense physical strength, the blow is accidentally fatal. Knowing Pharaoh would absolutely execute him for this, Musa flees Egypt in total fear. No food, no water, not even shoes. He treks across the harsh, unforgiving desert until he arrives, just completely exhausted, at the wells of Midian. And even then, in that state, he steps up to help 2 women water their flocks.
At this point, he's got nothing left. Resting under a tree, totally drained, he doesn't demand anything. He just makes this incredibly humble prayer, basically saying, "My Lord, whatever good you can send my way, I desperately need it." And the response was instant. Those 2 women, they were the daughters of Prophet Shuaib. Shuaib takes Musa in, gives him a job, offers him safety, and even gives him one of his daughters in marriage. So for the next 10 years, this guy who was raised as an Egyptian prince lives a quiet, peaceful life out in the desert as a shepherd.
Which brings us to the burning bush revelation.
Picture this. It's a freezing night. Musa is traveling back toward Egypt with his family after a decade in Midian. He sees a glowing fire on Mount Tor and goes over hoping to bring back some warmth. But instead, he finds the ultimate divine calling. Allah speaks to him directly from a radiating tree, telling him to take off his shoes because he's standing in a sacred valley. Right there, he's officially granted prophethood and handed the most terrifying mission you could possibly imagine. Go back to Egypt, walk right up to the ruthless Pharaoh, and demand the freedom of the Bani Israel.
Now, he wasn't sent into this impossible situation empty-handed. He was given some incredible supernatural tools. When Musa threw down his regular wooden shepherd staff, it physically transformed into a massive, terrifying serpent. And when he put his hand into his garment and pulled it out, it was radiating this brilliant, blinding white light. Knowing just how intense this mission was going to be, Musa also prayed that his brother Harun would be made a prophet alongside him, giving him some much-needed backup and helping him speak clearly because of that stutter we mentioned earlier.
And so begins the ultimate showdown, confronting the God King.
Empowered by these miracles, Musa and Harun march right into the palace and demand freedom for their people. Pharaoh, of course, isn't having it. But instead of just executing them on the spot, he wants to publicly humiliate them. So he summons 40 of his absolute elite master magicians for a grand public duel the whole city is watching. These magicians throw down their ropes and sticks, and they cast this massive mind-bending illusion that makes the ground look like it's just swarming with racing, terrifying snakes.
It was such an overwhelming sight that even Musa felt a totally natural moment of fear. But God reassured him right then and there, "Fear not." So Musa throws down his staff, and it becomes a real, massive serpent that just instantly devours every single one of those fake illusionary snakes. The 40 master magicians instantly recognize that this isn't a trick, this is true divine power. And right there, in front of everyone, they fall into prostration and submit to Allah, completely ignoring Pharaoh, who is literally screaming that he's going to torture and execute them.
But Pharaoh was stubborn. He absolutely refused to yield, and so Egypt was hit with a rapid-fire succession of horrific plagues. We're talking severe, crippling droughts, then massive, devastating storms, swarms of locusts that ate literally every crop in sight, infestations of lice, and then frogs covering every single inch of their homes, and finally, the Nile River itself turned to blood for the Egyptians while somehow remaining crystal-clear water for the Israelites. And the crazy part? After every single plague, Pharaoh would beg Musa to pray for it to stop, promising he'd let the people go, only to break his word the very second the plague lifted.
Next up, arguably the most famous miracle in history, splitting the Red Sea.
After all those betrayals and things getting worse and worse, Allah finally commands Musa and the Israelites to pack up and flee Egypt in the dead of night. Morning comes, Pharaoh realizes they're gone, and he is furious. He chases them down with his massive, heavily armed military. The Israelites hit the edge of the sea, and they are totally trapped. There is a raging ocean in front of them and a bloodthirsty army charging up behind them. The people are absolutely panicking, screaming that they're doomed. But Musa, he doesn't even flinch. With rock-solid faith, he declares that his Lord is with him and will guide him out of this.
Then Allah commands Musa to strike the water with his staff, and the sea literally splits wide open. We're talking massive, towering mountains of water standing up on either side, carving a completely dry path right down the middle of the ocean floor, and roughly 600,000 Israelites walk safely across to the other side. Just an unfathomable miracle.
Meanwhile, Pharaoh is so blinded by his own rage and arrogance that he leads his army right into that parted sea. And as you can guess, the massive walls of water collapse on top of them. As he's drowning, the tyrant finally cries out in pure desperation that he believes in God. But it was too late. His last-second repentance was rejected. However, Allah did preserve his physical body as a literal warning for all future generations. And incredibly, you can still go see that body today in a museum in Egypt.
Now, let's talk about the journey and the divine lessons that followed.
You'd think that after watching an ocean literally split in half, the Beni Israel would have totally unshakable faith, right? Well, human nature is complicated. To help them survive in the harsh, barren wilderness, God kept providing miracles. They got manna and salwa, literally effortless, heavenly food delivered daily. When they were thirsty, Musa struck a rock and 12 separate springs of pure water gushed out, one for each of the 12 tribes. They even had clouds constantly following them to act as a giant umbrella against the brutal desert sun. And yet, they still complained. They were ungrateful, whining that they missed regular earthly food like garlic and onions.
The tragedy really peaked when Musa was called back up to Mount Tur for 40 days to receive the Torah and the 10 Commandments, because, in his brief absence, the people got impatient and actually built a hollow golden calf and started worshiping it. It's wild. Later on, when they were finally commanded to enter the Holy Land, they lost their nerve and cowardly refused to fight. So, as a punishment for this continuous rebellion and lack of trust, they were banished to wander aimlessly in the desert for 40 long years.
During this wandering period, there's also this incredibly profound side journey Musa takes with a deeply wise, mysterious figure named Al-Khidr. And this journey was all about a vital lesson, that God's infinite plan is often hidden behind events that seem completely confusing or even tragic to us. Al-Khidr does things like damaging a poor man's boat, taking a young man's life, and rebuilding a wall for some really ungrateful villagers. To Musa, it made zero sense at the time. But eventually, it's revealed that every single one of those actions carried immense, hidden divine wisdom and mercy.
In the end, this absolute titan of a prophet, Musa, sees his earthly journey come to a close. After passing the torch of leadership on, he passed away in the desert, just a stone's throw away from the Holy Land he spent his entire life striving toward. Interestingly, his resting place was kept completely secret by Allah, so that people wouldn't turn his grave into a place of idol worship. He left behind a towering, unmatched legacy of absolute resilience against tyranny and unwavering faith when the odds were literally impossible.
So what's the big takeaway from this explainer? The story of Prophet Musa isn't just some ancient history lesson, it is a timeless blueprint for resilience. It really asks us to look at our own lives, because if God can part an entire ocean for a shepherd, what path is he waiting to open up for you if you just have the courage to take that first step?